So yesterday, round about tea time, I was visiting friends in Edinburgh. And as I was coming into Edinburgh, I decided to go along Seafield Road. Yep. Because more by the day, Edinburgh has become, shall we say, less friendly to vehicles as regards just getting or traversing Edinburgh. So you've got to work out various things, times, blah, 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 routes, all the rest of it, yeah? The day-to-day. But I could not believe my eyes when I was going along Seafield Road, inwards, yeah? Roughly about here, which is more or less across from Lothian Regional Buses Depot, yeah? Example here, turning to go into the depot. I could not believe my eyes. There was about 3 tents there. 3 tents. And what certainly looked to be migrants in said tents. And I'm thinking, this is Edinburgh. How seriously. But because there was, a flow of traffic and all the rest, it's not like you could hit the anchors or even park anywhere here. It's not easy. But, there was about 3 tents at least. Yeah, and what appeared, certainly, looked like migrants. Now, I remember I did a vid in the last couple of days with the title, Rough Sleeping Being Decriminalised as Part of the Destabilisation. And I'll leave you a link to that underneath this, but I could not believe my eyes. Seriously, could not believe my eyes. And as I was heading back out the way before visiting another friend, they were still there. They were absolutely there. There was absolutely zero doubt there was at least 3 tents. And I'm just wondering, is this the start of things in relation to that in Edinburgh? I'm just wondering, in all honesty, because certainly, if you look at Dublin as an example, although not exclusively Dublin, type it in, images, migrant tents, Dublin streets, blah, blah, blah. Seriously. Is this, I'm just asking, is this going to start being a thing in Edinburgh? And by the way, while we're on the subject, bloody hell, the state of the roads, they've just got worse and worse, yeah? Worse and worse. And when you think what they charge, the council in relation to most things in Edinburgh, parking charges alone is a major money spinner. Apparently they gross something like 40 odd million with a profit margin of about 33, funnily enough, or 30 odds. 30 odd million, yeah? I think they were quoting something like £9 an hour, yeah? Seriously. And then think of other things that have been happening recently in Edinburgh. Major festivals or events. All of a sudden, it's windy. We can't have it going ahead. People have come from, 4 corners or whatever to come to these certain festivals and all the rest of it. Oh, no, weather. Things like that. Type it in. And just, you can see a definite decay starting to happen in Edinburgh. The pish poor roads. They demonise 4x4s, but you can absolutely see why people with 4x4s would traverse somewhere like Edinburgh. Because the roads are so bad. Even this road, yeah? Seafield Road. There's a pothole, you could almost lose your car in it. And I'm like, how the hell? And it's all over the place, this kind of thing, yeah? And I remember, because while we're on the subject, and remember for years gone by, I used to say, remember a thing called dual rules for buildings? We had all these boxed buildings that appeared in, like, say, for example, the 90s, Matlan, all the rest of it, yeah? Even at the time, I thought, this doesn't look natural. This, as I drove past that, looked empty. But just say things kicked off. Or oh my God, it's become so bad, we're going to have to just commandeer X, Y, and Z. how quickly could they be turned into, well, hubs, accommodation, whatever, or something more? Yeah? I mean, believe me, I used to drop more than a hint. When you look at so many places, right, and they plan things well and truly in advance. Yeah? And I really see just now a definite destabilization. Yeah? And I used to drop the hint for years, like, if you look at around, with eyes to see, name the place that you live in and look at certain things. And could they be transformed in a short period of time to something else for another use? Yeah. I mean, I gave an example. Let's see. Which I noticed. And it was Burnt Island. Right next to the Beacon Leisure Centre. Let's just drop the wee manny here. And I remember when I used to live in Burnt Island a good number of years ago, there was something that went about, it was in one of these quarterly publications or, the Borough Buzz, something like that. And there was just some little article, just like if anybody's interested, blah, 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 based on resilience. If something happens, events, whatever else, there's looking for people motivated to get involved in that and all the rest of it. And I just, even at the time, I thought, Rex 84, various other things, as an example. I'll have a look for it. But when you look at the height of, for example, these, I mean, it's just a football pitch, blah, blah, but did it really need to be that high? And people could say, absolutely, people kick balls about, blah, blah, blah. But there is these are quite robust. And you say things, well, went south, and all of a sudden you're looking at holding places and all the rest of it. I mean, the naivety in most people, when you look at this deliberate, I would say, destabilization ongoing that you see in the West, I reckon you really honestly need to start being honest with yourself. Honestly, or honest with yourself. It's the words for today. The phrases. About what you're seeing going on around you. As you look at the deterioration in many towns and cities and villages across the UK. You could pick even villages and all of a sudden you've got these things quite high and all the rest of it. And I'm not joking you. Because when I look at what's going on around me, and even when I'm out and about, I see certain changes that absolutely concern me. I mean, I wasn't, I've said in the past, I had some experience in security. I would never class myself as, had been in that for a huge amount of time. I had some common sense aspects of which I was helping a friend in the noughties who was setting up a security company. And, we ended up doing stuff like Solfest in 2007 and various other things, blah, blah, blah. But even then I was clued up to the New Age movement. And, I've said it before, you should look up a couple of vids. One's called Gods of the New Age, right? And another one is, I think from memory, the New Age movement, Pathway to Paradise, ? They're both done in the 80s. From memory, I think it was the early 80s. But they're well worth your time watching. Because if you want to see the disconnect that many counsellors, those working in management, managers at NHS, various others, education system, all the rest of it, there's this sort of worship of Eastern mysticism and spirituality. And I think I covered some aspect of it when I was talking about in this one, what was it? This is what our governments are rolling out under the United Nations. Maybe I'll leave you a link to that one as well. But there is a connection because people, I don't think, they're not getting the picture as regards why can these people make such horrible decisions that really affect native people. You know, I mean, remember, the whole reason apparently people want to leap to these shores is our generational values, you know, the things that have made us so successful, you know, the beauty, the history, all the rest of it. And that's all being destroyed, you know, through the replacement of buildings, for example, in relation to, you know, like we used to have a vast amount more pubs. There was far more of community at the cohesion, and people generally stayed in the one place most of their lives because they knew everybody. You know, hi Jimmy, hi whoever. No matter where you lived, you knew most of the locals. You know, these things are being destroyed. But you know, going back to this New Age movement and all the rest of it, this disconnect. I mean, you look at it when they're talking about spirituality, and you know they go and find themselves gurus, you know, in certain places, and it's mind control on steroids. I mean, a lot of what you see as religion is absolutely based on mass mind control, and there's no two doubts about it. But when the very people who profess to look after your best interests have a very different view of the rest of us, and there is this total disconnect, this lack of empathy for locals, their way of life, their traditional, you know, the things that made us so successful, not just employment-wise, but community-wise and characters. You could confidently go to different areas anywhere in the UK and have such differences in dialect and attitude and character and all the rest of it that up until, well, a few decades ago was the lifeblood of the UK, and it is being destroyed. Because remember, when they say to you about global citizenship, I mean, I've dropped a hint in more than a few hangouts when I actually get the chance over the years. It's not just about destroying the family, destroying any idea about traditional family values, the nurturing, the embracement of facts of two sexes, male and female, all the rest of it, and a confidence that most children going through various phases in life and all the rest of it would grow up to be well-rounded individuals that seeked having a family, having extended family, all the rest of it. This is all being destroyed. But on top of that, it's going to get to a point where they're going to say, look, right, you've got no jobs in this area for your skill set, but we're all global citizens. You'll need to go and it will be name the continent or place, and it'll be India or China. I mean, remember, they didn't build quite literally scores. Now, scores are 20s of cities that each and every one of them can support like something like 9 million people and more. Now, some of them are half built, some of them are in bad repair. But hey, if we're all having to pull together and we're all doing this for Gaia Mother Earth, I mean, it is about absolutely shredding the West, where all this is going. I mean, remember, we're an already overcrowded island. Yeah? You can see, well, let's just see in Southern Ireland, a vast amount of their population less than happy with what their perceived government is doing supposedly on their behalf. And then look at Northern Ireland lately, yeah? And you hear some drumbeats from, oh, you know, there's this head researcher, or there's a guy from this think tank, and he's now seeing that, you know, we could be seeing civil unrest in the UK. Everything is bloody planned. There is no two doubts about it, yeah? And people are getting way too comfortable with the denial of more impoverishment being pushed. I mean, remember, in the 80s, no jokes, seriously. Someone happened to you, you had to go in A&E, you had some confidence that you'd get seen fairly quickly, like almost straight away. Ambulance, Edinburgh, 10 to 15 minutes tops. Now, that might still be the case in some respects, but you weren't lying in a bloody trolley, either in the ambulance or in a bloody hallway, for hours on end. None of that was, and remember, the NHS cost far less a few decades ago and yet had far more hospitals. And most of them, the wards were run by the sisters. The sister or the whatever, the matron, they wouldn't put up with pish with doctors. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get in the 90s, well, we need managers. And then it became in the noughties and onwards, wall to wall with managers. Meanwhile, the queues were getting longer. Yeah. The outcomes weren't as good. The money costs were getting through the roof. And yet, do you know what you tend to find within the management structures? A belief in the New Age movement. This disconnect. They have zero empathy for the destruction they are causing. Zero. It is an occult belief system, and you better wake up to it. Because that's the speed of where this is going at the moment. Oh my God. Anyway, your thoughts. Maybe a share or two. Maybe a subscription. Yeah, sub. And I'll speak to you soon.